Are you sharing your screen, Shadow?
Am I sharing my screen?
Yeah, with your stream.
You referring to like our stuff?
Yes.
Anything? Yeah, but I won't like the leadership roster or something that has like names and stuff on it. They won't see. Like right now, it's looking at the GM the guild vault tab or the census tab rather. Yeah, I wouldn't let them see like leadership roster, GM roster, or officer app. Hey, I wouldn't. I actually have a little thing that says censored when I have to go to that.
You have something that says censored?
Like it's a little overlay that'll hide the screen and it says censored. Are you making fun of me?
No, I think it's funny. Yes, I think it's great.
I try to think of everything. All right, so I think the two people that we are missing at this point is Yuli and
Lesion.
Legion, who said he was going to be a little bit late anyway. So we've got just about a minute. We'll give her a moment to come. She was here.
She's in the arena group up right now.
All right, so it is 9 o'clock on the dot. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for coming. If you would look so kindly in the new GM chat that has been created, you will see the GM training outline, like fourth or fifth down. This is just something that Joe and Loki and I have been put together in about a week's time. We're gonna hope to get through as much of this information as we can, but we don't want to pressure ourselves. And when we limit ourselves to 2 hours, 2 hours is over. Your obligation is gone. If the conversation just naturally goes, that's fine. But 11 o'clock is what you've committed to. So we're going to do our best to go through this. So the first thing we've got here is uh, uh, Loki is going to make sure that the new GMs and co-GMs have access to the G Drive.
Yes. So basically, all I have to go off of is what you submitted with your that's with your officer application. So like Heather has a Gmail account on there. Aldoxon has a Gmail account. Silver, do you have a Gmail account of any sort? No, I already added you. Never mind.
Yeah, we use Hotmail for me though.
What about you, Will?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Gmail account.
Do you have Gmail or Google account?
I do have a Gmail account.
Can you whisper it to me so I can give you permission?
Yeah.
Permissions?
To him.
Yes, I'll do that.
It works best with Gmail since it's a Google Drive. I mean, people can use it with other things, but I've had people kind of complain.
Do you have a Gmail account?
Sorry, you heard part of my sound check. So he's going to send you, give you access that will send that email address and email, and you'll get a hyperlink to go in, and it will be in your, Gmail, and it'll be a shared folder. That's the root folder for everything we have. So my recommendation is to bookmark that folder, and then go into things from there. You can certainly bookmark like files like nuts and bolts and stuff like that, but bookmarking using the root folder does kind of cause you to kind of look and see what else is going on in there, and there's lots of other stuff in there, and we'll talk about that soon.
Everyone should have their permissions.
So check your emails.
Yeah, if you try the first link that is in GM chat, the MCG drive, and you switch over to that account. If you have multiple ones, it should pop up for you.
So we should see the GM's folder and the officers folder.
Correct.
Yep.
So one of my additional responsibilities that I took over is managing the mature content Google Drive. We set it up where it's mostly owned independently of any individual person, but when somebody creates a document, it will make you the owner. So I may randomly ask you to assign the mature content user to be the owner of it. Just for some reason, if you were to leave, we would still retain access to it. So.
Does everybody in the G Drive and see the G Drive? Does everybody see what we're talking about? Especially our new people.
Yes.
Doxon, you're in it. Barb, you've got it.
I've got it.
Heather's got it. This is an interactable meeting, ladies and gentlemen. Put your voice activity on. All right, so we got GMs and officers. All right, Loki. Loki's going to give us a breeze through of what's in the G Drive.
All right, so in the G Drive, you do have the GM and the officer folder. I'm going to mainly focus on the GM folder for the moment, and then briefly go over the officer folder. So if everyone could bring up the GM's folder, we'll be able to touch on that rather quickly. So I'll wait like a couple of minutes for everyone to bring that up. Then we're going to start from the top. Okay, so we have the archive folders. So basically anything that we're not going to use anymore, but we still want to retain for information, we throw in the archive folder. I more likely than not will archive things. So one of the things I know I need to archive soon, but we would want to keep a hold of is like the Extra Life application and spreadsheet. I don't want Joe to have to go through all the work of making all those again. It's just not something that we're actively using in one of our forums folders. So something like that may be archived, and then when Joe or whomever goes through and do Extra Life next year, they can just copy it over and everything. Speaking of forums, this is a section that will sparsely be done because a couple of people are the ones who really update the forums because they're more familiar with it, but you're more than welcome to dip your foot into it. So if you open up the forums folder, you will see ones for committees, copies and archives. So there's a sub-archive folder. Leadership web project, which is what Minnie's doing right now. We have ones for auction. We have the one for the website. We have landing pad tracking, which is what one of the things that Shadow was working on. The council application, that's something that is a work in progress. We put everything in there from our old one and refine things, but we are refining what the GM and co-GM requirements are, so that'll be updated. Voice of the member, so on and so forth. That's self-explanatory. The ones that I really will ask you not to mess with are the rate lead or the RBG leader application. Now, the PvP committee, which we'll talk about more, has sparingly decided what at one time not to and another time to do so is to use an RBG application. But as we'll talk about more later, every rate lead typically comes on by filling out an application, and the requirements that go with the application are set by the raid committee and the GM council. So I just ask that you not concern yourself with that one. And if you move out to the root folder for GMs, you have the GM committee and officer checklist. We're off and on been working on a checklist for officers, but the main one that we really want to make sure that we focus on and use as a reference, which is also linked in the GM folder, and we'll talk about this more later, is the GM checklist. It should cover every single thing that is expected of a GM. There are things that are most likely not in there, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. But that is one of the important documents that I wanted to point out. Logos, images, swag, all that stuff. Joe got us our logo, so all of the information regarding our new logo is in there, plus other images that we have used. In the MC Charter folder, as you will see referenced multiple times, and is linked to GM chat as well, when the council votes on different matters, including the last one where we voted codes and GMs need to be 2/3 vote. That's gets updated in there and used for reference. It's one of our attempts to be transparent, but also be consistent by having that information in a public-facing place. The only one who has edit access to that is the mature content account, and I believe I do, which I probably need to remove. But everyone has suggestion access to it. So if there's something that's in there that you want to change, you can do suggestions to it, and then we can talk about it and bring it to council if needed. Meetings.
And I'd also like, I'm sorry, if I could just butt in and say about the charter. The charter is basically the living, breathing document of everything that the council has agreed upon up until now. Basically, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's a fancy way of looking at a lot of years of meeting notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it unfortunately only consists of what was started when it was Joe or Rosie where both of you started that we needed a charter, and then Joe and then I kind of like took the reins of it, and I've compiled a lot of stuff in there with Joe's assistance to make it what it is. So there are a lot of things that we will say, this is how we do it, that won't be in there, because that's just how we've always done it. Or have consistently done it in the past year that I've been here. But we are trying to document it. So if there's anything you want to see changed or documented that we don't have documented, I can work with you, Joe can work with you, Shadow, anyone can work with you to just try to pour ideas on the paper.
Okay.
And bring that to the council. We have meeting and trading.
Sidetrack us too much. I just kind of wanted to make that kind of notation about it.
Yeah. I'll be touching on it a little bit more later.
I'll have to join the Facebook page.
I thought I had voice activity on. I'm sorry. I will be touching. We will be touching on that more later. So I'm not going to touch too much on it. But if you go back to the root folder. Sorry if I'm talking fast. This is being recorded, so you will be able to go back and reference it at another point in time. In the meeting and training outline folder, we do have the 2 new officer orientations. More so, we have the new one that only has guild leader in it, thanks to Minnie for updating it. And we have the outline for the officer meeting, which isn't really completely 100%, where it's really just suggestions off of what was there before and what Joe has suggested since then. I say that because she's the last one that edited it. So in the meetings folder, if you go back up one, one of the things that Joe had suggested that I tried to kind of consistently do, because I've been bringing up different documents, is in the medias folder we do have a GM Council folder, and the agenda is there, which we'll touch on briefly. But basically, we've made an outline of things that people would like to bring up at the meeting. You don't need to put it down if you wanted to bring it up. Like if there's something that you want to talk about and you don't want to preemptively have a conversation before the meeting, you can choose not to put it on there. But the putting your stuff on there will make sure that you have the that it's built in, or attempt to be built in, to whatever order or time period that we have, because if something's like really important, like bringing on a coach GM or changing overarching policies and stuff like that, we try to do those first.
Right.
And then we go realm by realm. But anything that's really hot button, really needs to be taken care of, should be put in there, because then you're going to make sure that it gets taken care of.
And honestly, I mean, you know, even Congress knows whether a bill's going to pass before they actually put it up to vote. I mean, if you're looking to change the, you know, the maximum number of days that, you know, the purge policy from 30 to 60 days, you're probably going to have to sit down and talk to a bunch of people and do some real work to get that done, rather than bring it up in a meeting because we're going to say table it for a month. This is going to take too long of a conversation, and we all need to dwell on this and talk about this throughout the month. You know what I mean? Because there's just, you know, an infinite amount of time. So some of it does require us to have relationships with one another, talk to each other, and you know, work with one another throughout the month, so that, you know, we can have a certain amount of conversation about it there, and then, you know, take a vote on it. Because if we don't, we get stuck on stuff for like an hour because nobody's thought about it before they come to the meeting. You know what I mean?
And at the same time, in the same vein, you may end up having things tabled for multiple months in a row, because even though those conversations happen, one thing or another, Joe and I have both had things tabled for multiple months, just because of how much time that topic has required. Or just because people don't want to talk about it. Either one of those have been the case. But I digress. In that folder, there's also the GM Council folder. So if you have documents or anything that you would like to bring, items, there is a place for you to be able to put them in there to be able to easily reference. My suggestion is, if you have a document or something you want to reference to in the meeting, link it within the agenda so it's easy to bring up and not everyone's scrambling to find the link that's relevant. If you pop back up to root folder again, the last two things there are the training outline that you're dealing with today in nuts and bolts. The next topic of conversation that we're going to have is mainly dealing with nuts and bolts. So I'm not going to go into that. I'm not sure who's going to be talking about nuts and bolts, if it's going to be me, Joe, or Shadow. So I'm going to shut up now.
Well, let's get into nuts and bolts. Does everybody see the nuts and bolts file, and are they able to open it?
Yes.
All right. Is there anybody here that says, I am not experienced or comfortable with spreadsheets at all? Shadow, you're going to have to go slow on this one. Don't feel shy. I'm not going to hold it against you. I just want to make sure that, you know, we're going at a comfortable pace for everybody. Okay, good. So everybody has at least a minimally basic understanding of spreadsheets. So on the bottom, there's a bunch of tabs. And all these different tabs are things that we work in on a weekly or a monthly basis, depending on how often we do it. So if you click on, I'm going to skip a couple first tabs because we're going to talk more in depth about them, but let's just review a couple. If you click on the census tab, you're going to see a whole bunch of numbers. And you should see columns at the top that say each realm, Airy Peak, Dalaran, alphabetically going from left to right. There's a scroll at the bottom. You can scroll over, or you can hold down Shift and use your mouse wheel, and it will scroll left to right for you. And this is exactly what it looks like. It's the numbers of our guild. It's how many people are in the guild by member, by account, and how many of those people are in Discord. So there's 3 numbers on this spreadsheet that you need to fill in. We ask for at least once a week. If you want to fill it in every day because you want to see the daily shift of numbers, that's perfectly fine. We just ask you to do it once a week. So I'm going to play here just for a quick moment in the Erie Peak column because it's the first one. And I'm going to go down to the 3rd of February. And I'm going to say, no, actually, I'm going to go down to the 9th of February because I haven't updated my numbers in a while. And I'm going to say my numbers are 850 and 550, and I got 30 more, so I'm at 134. So everybody see where I've changed those numbers?
Yes.
All right, I'm on column B and row 43. So if I don't fill anything in, what will happen is the values will not calculate all the way to the right of the spreadsheet. If you scroll all the way to the right, you're going to see where it adds it all up for us. So if there's no values in there, it will not calculate properly. So if there's a large space between or any space between calculating numbers, what we do is we just simply copy and paste the last number down. And what that tells us is you updated it, or the Erie Peak was updated on the 31st of January, and then again updated on the 9th of February because the number didn't change. So just keep that in mind. We've had some GMs that like to fill it in every other day, but not fill in, in the in-between days. Fill it in with something so that it'll populate. Okay, so once a week, twice a week or more if you want to, but basically, if a GM comes in here and sees a GM hasn't filled it in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, then usually we'll say something, remind each other, about it. The next tab, if you want to scroll over all the way to the right before we go out of census, I'm sorry, you'll see that these numbers do add up. So the last total number we have is from yesterday, 5,493 members, 3,605 accounts, approximately 933 in Discord. All these numbers is the same throughout the spreadsheet. The ratio is the account to member ratio, which means that right now we have approximately 35% of our members are alts. And the account to Discord ratio is the percentage of accounts that register in Discord. So that's 25.88% of 3,605. Now, I will tell you that that total account number is a little bit overblown because if I have characters in multiple guilds, like I do on Dalaran and Moonguard, I'm considered in that number to be 2 accounts when I'm only really 1 because I'm, account holder is a person. But, technicalities. So that number is slightly probably by 100 to 200, I would probably guess, but not too bad. Does anybody have any questions about the basic function of this spreadsheet?
Is there going to be any issues? Obviously not. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. To get the member and account numbers, you do /G info in game, and it gives you those 2 numbers. And to get the Discord number, we get that through Discord, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
What I was asking was if there was, if you and I are both in here at the same time, can we both change
Yes.
numbers at the same time?
We can
And
all
I
change
figured that
numbers
out
at the same
because
time.
I accidentally started punching
Yes.
in.
Yes, you will see. You'll be in here doing your thing, and you'll see like, oh, there's Minnie. She's doing her thing with me too at the same time. Okay, census. Next tab over. Census. Sorry, excuse me. Guild Vaults. I apologize. Guild Vaults 2019. Same exact principle. Once a week would be appreciative. This really is more for your benefit than it is ours, to be quite honest with you. I mean, it's nice to know how everybody's doing, but it's it shows you how much gold you're losing on a daily and weekly basis through repairs. So if you do it once a week, you'll see the number once a week. If you do it once a day, you'll see it once a day, or you can at least start to see the patterns. So you can make adjustments to your repairs as needed if you're losing too much gold, or maybe you're getting a lot of gold and not not going down. Some GMs in the past have been real competitive. Like I remember one of the GMs, a very peak, she wanted to be the first GM to get 10 million gold in her bank, which inspired all these other GMs to start pumping gold and raising funds for their guild banks, which is great. But all we use gold for, the only thing we're supposed to be using gold for, and the only thing we've agreed to use gold for, is repairs or buying bank tabs. That's really all it should be used for. So if you have a shit ton, why? It's not doing any any good sitting there. So give generous repairs if you can.
Yeah.
What
Um,
about buying materials for the bank?
Yeah.
For the bank?
yeah,
That's what I was
yeah,
going to
I'm
say.
sorry,
Is what
but guild related stuff. Yeah, we don't lend it out. We don't give it out to people and stuff, right? But anyway, okay. So my point is yes, okay, maybe we do those types of things or buy different things, but we don't need 10 million gold to do it and only give people 10 gold a day. Adjust it as you see fit. And when we go through the charter, we'll show you the wording is what the suggested minimum. So really, the GMs have pretty much free reign to decide their guild repairs.
and
For the ranks that give them. Excuse me. Sorry, go ahead.
And just for those who don't know, the only person who can change the permissions on repairs or anything with the bank is the person who holds the guildmaster rank. So, and that's only one person. So if you're a GM in training, you'll need to get with the person who holds the keys to the realm if you want to know exactly what your settings are and if you want to adjust any of them for any reason.
All right, so same concept applies. If you skip days, please fill in the previous field so everything works. Any questions about this? Kind of like a checkbook, basically, just updating the balance every once in a while. Everybody good on this one? Okay, these are simple concepts, I assume. Let's go to meeting event by realm schedule. So there is generally this is something that's been updated and kept going by me and started by me, kept going by Joe and Loki as far as maintaining it and moving things around when different things happen and, we add or subtract realms or whatever the case may be. So we try to work it out and spread it out as best as possible. And there are going to be some realms that have to do more officer trainings and some that do less, and some do more officer meetings and some do less. You can switch with people if you don't like to do officer trainings. It's not your favorite thing, but you don't mind hosting the officer meeting. You can always switch with another GM, but that's between you and that GM, and you guys need to come in here and modify it so it's on record. So this gives you a whole year out of your commitments to the guild, or at least your administrative/GM commitments, I should say, not including raid teams and that type of thing. And what we what we hold as important to keep going. We were talking about this earlier. Officer meetings are important. Officer trainings, are important because those officers come in immediately and get that sense that we are 8-9 realms, all working together. We're all getting the same information. And we want them to have that community feeling. So that's something that, and it helps us all because, the last training took Loki 2.5 hours to get through, went a little over, but how long would it have taken you to train 15 people? 15 hours probably, if not more. So we got 15 hours accomplished in 2.5 and got a bunch of people together and got them to know each other. And hopefully they graduated from that officer training and maybe made a connection and kept in touch with each other and so on and so forth.
Now, one of the things I want to note is a lot of them may say Monday, like for example, for the officer trainings, I don't. You will, and other ones you'll see week of. That doesn't mean you have to do it on May 13th. That doesn't exactly mean you have to do it that week. They're just suggested. So, like for example, for the officer trainings, you're more than welcome to work with the other person who is hosting an officer training that month to make sure that they're being held, like they're both not being held on the same day or stuff like that. And then the GM event or town hall, that could be held anytime within the month. It's just when I went through, I tried to make it so there wasn't anything that was overlapping on the same week. So,
Okay.
but
So
the only thing that's set in place is the officer meeting and GM council meeting.
yeah, so trainings can be any day, any time of the week that works for you. If you want to do it 2 o'clock in the morning, do it. I mean, of course, if only one person, but you might be surprised in this guild, 10 people might show up at 2 a.m. You know, if you're not comfortable doing it alone, ask other people to help co-host with you. If you don't have a co-GM, if you're newer, we're very willing to help because we all want our officers to be successful, and we don't want them to, you know, go through a 2-hour train wreck. We want them to give them a a positive image. And I will tell you that it's really important, that it's really good, honestly, if you can, to show up for the first part of the officer training, even if not the first part of it, before that. Make sure any officers that are in that training are promoted to officer. Just get that done with. They're going to go through the training anyway. Let them see that you're there, and it just just kind of represents us. Even if you don't end up staying, and even if you aren't the one that ends up doing the majority of the training, I will tell you when I do them. If you message me and says, "Hey Shadow, I'm here. If you need my help, let me know." I'll assign you something. Say, "Hey, okay, you can talk about blank," and when we get to it, I will yield to you. I always want to incorporate other people into what I'm doing. And I think everybody else feels the same way. Um, so we've got town hall or GM event on there. I want to talk briefly about that. That is something that was voted on the council, and let me explain how that worked when we voted it in. We all agreed that we needed to do more as a council, that we weren't playing with our guild as a collective as much as we should be, and using the sheer power and magnitude of our influence to get people together. And town hall was done twice a month for 4.5 years, nonstop, consistently, and then dropped. And that kind of helped to kind of soften the blow. The fact that we didn't always have a monthly off guild party or event or something like that. So we put this in and we said we're going to have a monthly party that we're all going to come to. We're all going to beg and plead our officers to come to and encourage them to come to, and we're going to do something big where we can get people together for a couple hours a month. But we have to assign it to somebody to be the responsible person. Somebody's got to take the lead, because when nobody volunteers to take the lead, it doesn't get done. We all understand that. So we put it on a realm each month. But that does not mean the rest of us shouldn't be there, if even for a few minutes, if we can. I know we all have varying schedules and 100% of the people can't be there 100% of the time. But I watched a couple of the guild parties that happened while I stepped down, and I think 2 or 3, I might be liberal in saying 4 GMs showed up for the one that Loki did. So it's something that's really important. It's one of those it's kind of one of those really kind of hard, soft commitments that we make. If we can be there, we will be there. And of course, if it's your month to host, you don't have a choice. But what you're also supposed to be doing is leading us, the council, in helping you. So it doesn't have to be just you, or you and your co, or you and your co and your officers. It's supposed to be the GM group led by you, and you come to us, say, okay, I need someone to do this, I need someone to do this, I need someone to help me with this, I need whatever. Tell us what your plan is, and we're supposed to be there to support you. So keep that in mind when we can in the future, as we continue to discuss that, because it's been a bouncing bone of contention, because some people really took that commitment seriously and some people never ever did. So if it's something that people want to get rid of as a commitment, bring that up at a council meeting and get rid of it as a commitment, and whatever happens from there happens. But if it's going to be on there as a commitment, be there. All right, so that's the basics there of this document. Again, if you want to swap something with another realm, by all means get with them, and please make the edits on here, because we don't want people coming back and saying, well, I swapped with so and then so and so forgot. That's what this document's for. All
What's the
right.
GM council meeting with the numbers on the side?
GM council meeting, which one are we looking at? 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern is the numbers.
No, on the side to the right, all the way over to the side, it says GM council meeting, and then it lists each one of the.
Oh,
the
okay. Yep. That is how many times you're going to do it over the course of, I think, 12 months. So Airy Peak 1, Dalaran 1, KT 2, Moonguard 2. That's how many times in the course of, I think, a year. Is that right, Loki?
Until December. So like for Whisper Wind it's a 0. But I've already taken out the January, so technically it would be 1-on-1.
Okay. So yeah. So
Okay.
that's how roughly how many times you're going to do it, assuming the schedule doesn't change for the next year. And I can tell you it does. So this is something you kind of have to just keep an eye on and see where your place in line is, so to speak. We try to make it so no one realm does more than one thing per month. When it was 12 realms, we could do it where no one realm did anything more than once every other month. But the less realms, the more we have to all kind of do. All right, so I want to talk about something that you're going to be most interactive with here in this, and this will be the last thing we talk about. The rest, any of these other tabs you can look at. You can see the Raid Leader app. That's where the Raid Leader application comes in. RBG Leader application comes in. GM application comes in. You can scroll over where the chapter application comes in. There's some old GM, SGI, and messages of the day things that I kept track of for a while. I think this is all in other folders though. I think technically this could go really. The kick and ban log, we don't keep it up as good as we should, but if you kick or ban somebody for behavioral reason, put it in there just in case you're not around when we need to figure out what's going on, and then a bunch of previous year sheets and old archived information. So I'm going to go back to the left and I'm going to go to Officer app. And I need to censor this because it has private information for the streamers. This is when an officer candidate fills out an application, it goes in here. And that's your first sign that somebody's filled it out unless you've spoken to them. You can see it listed by realm there: Home Realm, Dalaran, Proudmoore, Stormridge, Thunderbird. And these are the people that are waiting to be trained. When they come in, you will approve them, make a note as to who approved them, and you will give them the trainee tag here in Discord, and they'll get that new officer training room. Probably the same thing most of us saw for the first time. And we know, I think all of us know the process you go through from there. We post it, you go to the one you can go to, you get the training, you become an officer. I believe in that process, again, because of the community aspect of that process. But do know as a GM, if you're desperate and you don't have officers and you just can't wait for that person to go through the next training, you always have the document and the option to sit down and train them yourself. Any GM can train any of their officers anytime independently if they so choose. It's a time benefit for us and a community benefit for them, hopefully. And I encourage all GMs to do that. But if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. Sometimes we can't wait. So let's talk about the other side of that, right? What was the GM doing while he or she was training me through this process? So we only have 4 people here. So let's say I'm doing a training, and I'm just gonna, for the sake of this conversation, there's only one person, and that's Moon. That's Moon, Discord name Moon, for Thunderlord. I'm gonna move her down. And this is where I move her down as she comes in that night for the training. It's like me taking attendance, right? Then I start my training, I do my training, and at some point, either somebody else is talking or we're getting toward the end, and I can multitask for a minute. I need to take this information and I need to move it to the leadership roster tab. So let's pause here and have everybody look at the leadership roster tab. And you're going to see your realm name twice, because you have a section, if we're looking at it for Airy Peak, that goes from left to right. You'll see Airy Peak there. And these are all of their officers. The ones that are highlighted in yellow just recently went through a training. That's why they're yellow, to alert the GM that they went through a training. And if you scroll over to the right, you're going to see Airy Peak again.
Hold
right?
on a second.
Mm-hmm.
The sheet is
We're
Which
looking
sheet
at
are we
the
looking
leadership roster.
Okay, I got it now. I was looking the wrong direction.
No worries. I know I'm going fast, but I'm trying to. I would love to spend a lot more information just on this file, but I can't. A lot more time. So because it's the Airy Peak section, of course, all of their officers in the Airy Peak tab row, the line G, right? If we go down a little bit and look at Dalaran, you'll see it's in the Dalaran left to right section, but it's also line H because that's Dalaran. Now, if Joe makes a character on Airy Peak and wants it to become an officer, the Airy Peak GM, if Joe messages the Airy Peak GM, says, "Can I be an officer in your realm?" and the Airy Peak GM says yes and promotes them to officer because they're one of my officers, you would put that there. So now we know they have a character on your realm that is at officer rank. If they're not an officer, we don't care. You don't need to put it there. If they apply and they give us their name for your realm and you decide you don't want them to be an officer on your realm, but you're not the home realm GM, but you're just not going to make them an officer, take the name out. We don't need to keep track of names that we don't need. This is only people in your realm that have the officer tag. That's all this is. So your portion is the part that goes left to right. So Airy Peak, those are their home realm officers. And if you scroll over to the right, I'm sure you'll see somebody maybe. Yes, you get to Wormrest Accord, and you've got Nada. Oh, hold on. This is screwing me. Okay, you've got Nada that has characters on Wormrest. You've got Barb that does, and you've got Dracaeus. But they also have characters on Airy Peak. So you can see where it's been tracked. This is for everybody's benefit because if an officer is demoted on a home realm, if I demote an officer on my realm, Dalaran, and they have characters on 2 or 3 other realms, you are supposed to demote them. Now, if you don't want to demote them because you want to assume them as an officer, then you can take them on as your officer later if you want to. For whatever reason, they want to be your officer rather than mine. And that happens sometimes. We transfer officers around under certain circumstances.
I have a question, Shadow.
Sure.
Since are we going to still continue to keep, because Storm Rage is still in the document, but since we don't have Storm Rage anymore, is that going to be removed?
Wait, what?
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 Or not Storm Rage. Sorry, not Storm Rage.
Bye, Loki.
Dark Spear. Not you, Loki.
Is Darkspear still on this document, or which one are
Yes.
you
Yeah, it
referring
is.
to?
Dark Spear's still here.
I
Darkspear
don't-
on H. On I. Sorry, I.
Oh, the I one. Okay, I got
I'm
you.
sorry, Loki.
I got you. Did you? Oh, you know what? You didn't. Did you put in Thunder? You didn't put in Thunder either. I don't see a column for Thunder. Thunderlord. He has no place to put his list his officers.
I see it down at 44, but along the side.
But right, but going to the right, there's no.
Yes, there is.
Now
Yeah,
there
I
is.
see it.
So that is basic, and then all the way over to the right, there's a columns and reminder section. Nobody really ever uses that. If you want to make a note, put that officer. But that's exactly what this document is. This document should match your roster. If you pull up all of your GMs, code GM, senior officer, this should match that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I have an officer that I don't have as officer right now. So how would I delete that row? Do I just highlight it all and press delete?
No.
So
We archive everything, but we'll get to that. We haven't
Okay.
gotten quite to that yet. But no, the answer is no. So based on the information I've given you so far, does anybody have any question about the intent and purpose of this document? Okay. So let's get back to our new officer. So what I want you to do on this leadership roster tabs, I want you to scroll down to the bottom. And when you get down to the bottom, way past all the committees and everything, you're going to see after streaming committee and social committee, you'll see demoted. We don't have anybody who's been demoted lately. Usually this list will be down to 10 or 20 people by the end of the month. So let's go back to, oh, you know what? Let me, hold on a second. Let's do this real quick. This is a little easier to see. There we go. All right, let's go back to the officer app. So I'm doing an officer training. We're not talking about the logistics of actually doing it, but we're talking about what we're doing behind the scenes. We're doing an officer training. I've taken note of everybody's there. Only this one guy, Moon, showed up. I'm training him. At some point, I'm going to populate the information from here over into the leadership roster for all of the trainees. So it's a better example if I use more. So I'm just going to say all 4 of these people are here. So all 4 of these people are here, done training, and I need to populate this information over. The first thing you need to know is with Google Docs, with forms, where the spreadsheets that have form information coming into it, you cannot control X. You can't cut and paste out of it. You have to copy and paste out of it. So there's only certain columns that we need to populate over. There's only actually a few of them, and those are these columns here, the yellow ones. Nothing outside of this information needs to be populated over. So let's say I've done this training. I'm going to copy and paste all this information from D to I. So I'm copying it. Let's go back to leadership roster. Normally, if I was doing this with just my coach GM or one person, I would have you do it. But and then at the bottom under pending, I'm going to bring them over. Now, normally they're not yellow. They're usually white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move their information out. So this one's Thunderlord. I would take this one and move it over to Thunderlord, bring it down there. I'll throw it KT for now. This one's Moonguard. I'm sorry, actually this is Poppy, so she'd be Dalaran. Move that over to Dalaran. This one's Proudmoore. Move this one down to Proudmoore. You just move them around, set it up before you move it up. That's basically all you do. Once you got them all set wherever they're supposed to go, you can delete the realms because you don't need to know that, because you can look at the column and figure that out. And what is their title, which usually almost always is officer, because they're going through an officer training. That's it. Now we're ready to move them up and start bringing them up and putting them under their header. And again, I'm skipping simple things like how to move multiple columns, because everybody said they have a comfortable basis of spreadsheets. But if you don't know how I'm doing something like this, let me know and I will tell you. Just click the line, the little white hand comes out, and we can move them around.
Which line are you collecting? Are you pressing the number line?
It's the number
99?
line. Yep. When you click the header of the number line, like 98, it highlights all of 98. Little white glove comes out.
Okay,
and
cool.
You can use it to move it. You guys can move those around toward the bottom if you want to practice. Those are just copy and pasted. We'll just delete those lines. So the officer training is completed. You moved them over. They've gone through the training. You've done everything you're supposed to do there. You move them up. I usually make them yellow as a courtesy for the GM so they know they're new. But once you see they're new, take away the yellow. You don't have to keep it there. And then we have to go back into the officer app tab. And now we have to delete these lines because you can't control X. So you just delete these lines and they go away because they've been moved over to the leadership roster. So let's go back and that's it. You're done. You're done with the training. So let's go back to the leadership roster. So these are my officers here: Moon, Creative, Ugo, and Poppy. And none of them showed up at the officer meeting. Nobody told me anything. Never showed up. They're demoted. So you asked me, what do you do when your officer's demoted? You put them in, the demoted section. The reason, number one, we never delete anything. We archive everything. And number two, the reason you want to do that is because at the council meeting, we're supposed to be looking at this file to see who has demoted, to make sure that we've demoted any alts of those other officers on our realm or made appropriate changes. And that's your opportunity to make corrections as necessary. So we don't want to delete it. And of course, you can see that through the month. You can make the change anytime you want. But they get archived at the end of that meeting. So that's your deadline to look at this, is the end of the council meeting. All right. Anybody, I know I went through that really fast, and if anybody is kind of like, I think I got it, but I might want a little bit more, I will do more as much as you need later. But if there's anybody who has any pertinent information or questions on this, please don't hesitate to ask. Going once.
Is there an easy way to delete a whole row? Just select the number and press delete? Or
yes,
do it
select the whole line, right click, and hit delete.
Perfect. Awesome. Like, I understand, like, spreadsheet. It's just some small things. I got to learn stuff.
Yep. And there's a back button if you make a mistake. And I'll also say this. This thing automatically archives itself up to the change. If you make a huge mistake, like you're like, oh my God, Shadow, I deleted half the thing and I don't know what happened to it, we can go back into the archive and restore a previous version, and it probably won't have that many changes missed. But the longer you wait to tell us, the more edits that get involved, and the more complicated it becomes, because this is a living, breathing document with 13 people using it on a weekly basis. So don't be shy to come to Loki. Sorry, to go to Loki and let him know that a mistake's been made. I don't think he's going to make you feel shit for it, because we'll get in there, or he'll get in there and get it fixed right away. All right. Nothing can't be undone. So don't worry about that. All right. Any questions about this whole entire document that I have perused us through from start to finish here? Any questions at all? Don't be shy. All right. Perfect. Where are we now, Loki? Oh, Facebook. So it's always been kind of one of those. Actually, when we first started the guild, officers were required to be on Facebook. All officers were, but we didn't have Discord, and that requirement is now gone. But we have an active Facebook page with over around 1,900 members in it, past, present, and past and present. It does bring a lot of members back into the guild. People see that we're still active, and people rejoin the guild after months or even years of being gone. So every little bit helps. If you are absolutely not on Facebook, refuse to be on Facebook, have never used Facebook and never will use Facebook, we can't force you to do it. But again, what if one day the guild gets dumped on you, including the Facebook page? And are you going to throw away 5 years of effort, or 6 or 7 years of effort, because you won't get on it? So again, if we're owners and we're partners, we're owners and partners of everything, not what we choose or choose not to. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you to make sure that you are a member of the Facebook page, if not already, and B, contacted Minnie here through Discord, or let her know, or however you want to do it. GM chat is fine. Have we made it so they can edit it yet, Loki?
Yes.
Are they good? Okay. Or you can throw it in GM chat. Let Minnie know she's the owner of the Facebook page and main administrator, and she will give you moderation to the Facebook page. And Minnie, I will turn the floor to you to discuss the lovely Facebook page.
So the Facebook page is pretty simple. Well, first of all, I will just whisper me privately, and then I can easily find you and then add you if you are on Facebook. Then it's not hard. The only things that are really needed as being a moderator, there's a couple different things that you can do. You can post daily things if you would like, about things in the guild,
Events
anything.
on the calendar.
Yep, and events on the calendar. Maybe it could be about updates in the game itself. So moderator's main job, obviously, is to everybody that requests to come in on the page is to answer 3 different questions. When they come in, they have to answer 3 questions. It's what their main tune's name is, what realm they are. I can't remember what the other question is.
And do you agree to the terms of service?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So those are the only ones that you can accept. So if you want, you can spam in your guilds here on in WoW. That's what I've been doing. And then advising everyone to make sure that they answer the 3 questions. So the only ones that you can then go ahead and approve to come in are the ones that did that. You will see if they had answered those. Next thing is all their posts. All of the posts that are posted within the Facebook page are to be somehow WoW or Guild related. So before anything can be posted, we can actually see what it is that they're posting. So
You're
you
not
can
talking
go
about
ahead.
a whole lot every day. We're talking about a
No,
few a day or so.
a
Um,
few day or so. It's not crazy busy. It really isn't.
no.
So
And
it's not a lot.
it's kept much more guild and game related than say hashtag guild chat is. So my kind of the thing that my litmus test is if I glance at it and I don't see something that jumps out at me that says World of Warcraft or mature content, then it's a no go.
Right.
It's a decline. So it has to it has to be something that makes you feel like it's guild or game related.
Yep.
And you do get a few of those people who just it's like post that on your own personal Facebook page. So anyway,
And I
so
was going to say another thing to note. Actually, we had this not too long ago. You may find a member that was banned from the guild for really good reasons. You may then see them all of a sudden pop up on the page. If that's the case, and you are aware, and there's good reasons, you know why they were banned, please ban them from the page. I try to keep every now and then poke in on some of the posts. Normally, it's really good though. I don't ever see really much of any moderating that needs to be done. Like people posting things or saying things that's inappropriate. It's pretty much about that. If you need any more questions after you ask to be added, I'll be glad to help you.
and if you're already a member, just let her know your name and she'll people cannot see this does not if you post in here your friends on your Facebook page do not see your post in here because this is a private group. Okay, so people aren't going to see that you post in here, and people aren't going to see that you comment on a post in here, and it's going to get anything like that. So just FYI. Okay. All right, that's Facebook for a wrap. Calendar admin. Joe, do you want to talk about extended calendar admin information?
Yes. So our admin site, or the admin site is Talkified.
And it's
Sorry.
in the GM. It's in the GM. Is it one of those links you put in there, Loki?
Yes, I put the information in there, including the password.
Yep. So
This
go
is
ahead.
the editable site, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, and this is where, if an officer or a member has, an event on the calendar and they're like, oh, shoot, I need to change the time, or I need to cancel that, or maybe they come and they're like, you know what, this turned out really well, and I want to make this a repeating event, every 2 weeks. You can do that. As long as they have an event on the calendar, you can delete it, you can edit it by either creating just one off separate events, just copying the whole thing, or you can turn it into a completely repeatable every month, every week. You can do it the first Tuesday of every month, or there's lots of different options.
There is a document that we haven't talked about. Maybe some of you've seen. It is in the G Drive, and it's the public-facing document that you can share only to any member or officer that wishes to put an event up on the calendar. And it will walk them through, if they read it, putting an event up on the calendar and what information should be put up. Please review that document. There is a box, and it says please copy and paste the information and fill it out. It's basically they copy and paste it and then fill it out in the post so that all of our posts have symmetry. We should know who the leader is. If really posts that get posted up without the leader name, the minimum requirements, description of the event, picture, let them know you got to find a picture to put up if you want a picture on there. That's the most common error people make in doing those is they don't read the instructions and see what we want them to include. And so the most easy way to have them fix it is say, just submit a new one and I will delete the old one, and let them redo it and learn how to do it and get the gist. If that happens, then it will happen. But this is the way we can go in and edit the calendar.
Okay, what form is it that you guys are looking at now?
If you go into the if you go into the GM chat here in Discord and you go to the pinned messages or even scroll up a little bit, you'll see Loki put the information for the website calendar where we put all of our events and our raids and everything. Officers and members, non-GMs, have access to put things on the calendar through a different link, not the link that we use. It's a different link to submit an event, but they can't edit their event once submitted. If they need to change the date or something in it, they'll need to come to one of us to get us to do it. If they make a mistake, they can't go back and edit it. You can go back and edit it or delete it and have them just resubmit it.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
And just a quick tip for when you do have officer training, when it's your turn to host, I don't ever create a new event for that. I always search the calendar and go copy somebody's, that has put it up in the last month.
Yes.
Just copy it, and you can just change it to your name as the host. Make sure you update the time, date and time for the event. But as far as like officer training or anything, if you want to do any other event that's ever been on the calendar, just find
in the
it.
past.
Yeah, in the past, just find it. Copy
Like
it.
if you
and it'll let
type in
edit.
search and you type in officer, it'll bring up everything that has officer in the title for the future, but you can go to the past as well and see past events and go in and copy that event and duplicate it and use it. And that's very handy for us. Anything else we missed, Joe, on the calendar and editing the calendar?
No, that's pretty much it. If you get in there, it's if you're any technical savvy at all, it should be fairly simple once you get in there and start poking around. But if you want somebody to walk you through editing or adding a new date or whatever, feel free to grab me, and we can chat. I mean, it takes a couple of minutes. Once you do it the first time, you should, it should be.
Just be cautious when you are either editing, repeating events, or you're copying repeated events, because it'll copy the repeat values, and sometimes you don't always want to do that, and sometimes you don't always want to delete the whole repeating series. You just want to take off one date. So like around the holidays, the raid leader says, hey, we're going to take 2 weeks off. We can go in and just delete that raid from those 2 weeks without deleting the entire post, and it'll keep continuing to go. Any questions, comments, concerns before we move on?
Joe, do you want to discuss guild history, goals, and member focus?
Guild history and goals and what?
Number
Guild
2.
History, goals, and member focus.
I got so
Mission
many
statement.
tabs open. I'm sorry.
Shadow's not his computer, so I figured.
I am. I'm here.
So.
Oh, when I was watching your stream, I didn't see you.
I'm having a lot of lag. If I cut out, just let me know and then I'll shut up. So yeah, several months ago when we felt, and it was, when other people were on the council who are no longer with us because they stole our shit and ran. But even at that time, we realized we really needed to find some common ground between all the GMs, between everybody on the council. And part of that, everybody had not everybody, a couple of people had some different ideas. A mission statement was brought up. And then that charter that we had talked about was also brought up. So I don't want to say threw together a mission statement. I put one together from things that had been talked about or discussed. And that is the one that you see on the hashtag guild info. When you click on that and you go all the way to the top, with the watermarked lion head bit.
So it says, Mature Content Community was founded with the intention to bring guild members together to play World of Warcraft with other like-minded adults with a strong emphasis on voice chat. MCC is an alliance-only conglomerate of guilds across multiple WoW realms who connect by a shared Discord server. MCC welcomes a diverse member base with a common thread of mutual respect and understanding while having fun playing a game. So that's what is currently our current mission statement. and I would say that that's a good mission statement based on the values that started the guild. And I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but not everybody was here yet. The people that started the guild, including myself, were people who embraced voice chat. We used it all the time. It was a big part of our lives. Vent, TeamSpeak, Skype, all that kind of stuff. We always included it, and we really wanted to try and find and attract those members within the game that have that same value, and that's where mature content kind of came from. And when I looked at the recruiting process and different options of recruiting and how to get members, um, you know, and we sat down and talked about the values of the guild. Is we don't want to leave anybody out. We don't want to leave anybody behind. We don't want to make anybody feel unincluded. But there are certain, obviously minimum standards that we went by or guidelines, and obviously 18 years of age or older was one of the big ones. So that's always been a founding principle, that we're an adult guild, so we don't have to deal with certain issues that might come from not being an adult guild. But it really was based around a group of people who really were very voice centric and were looking to build a community of voice centric, like-minded folks. What we find out through looking through those numbers and so forth is about 26% of our members come into voice. So are we? I would say yes, but are all of our members? I would say no. And that, I really don't know what more to do about that. We've spent 5 years trying to figure out how to get more people into Discord. We spent 5 years, spamming guild chats and messages of the day and all of these things, doing everything we can to get in our members' face to get more involved. And at the end of the day, people are just going to do what they want to do. And it is what it is. But that's the kind of core foundation: adult guild, voice centric. It was started by a fairly liberal group of people who didn't want to hear racial or homophobic stuff like that. So that's always been kind of at the core. But when we first started, we kind of thought, some of these things are just kind of common knowledge, common sense things. You don't go into a room with a bunch of people you don't know and use racial or homophobic slurs. But what we found out, unfortunately, over the years is that isn't necessarily common knowledge for everybody. So, we've gotten more into the whole term of service thing, and we'll go into that more later as far as behavioral issues. But at the end of the day, we're looking for members that are mature, that are knowledgeable, that want and that appreciate voice chat as within a certain percentage of their gameplay, and that's definable to them. But somebody who is absolutely not interested at all, I mean, yeah, they can stay in our guild, but they're not really that focus member. And we can all have our personal feeling about that. Some of us say, yeah, right on, Shadow, and some of us say, well, that's not fair. So it is what it is, and that's going to be something that we're probably all going to have some slight interpretation of. All right. So mission statement started off, and the intention was always to be big. We always wanted. We were tired of the previous guild we were in had 800 members in it, and probably 300 that hadn't logged in over 2 years. And we're like, no, we don't want. That's So that's where the purge came in. We had a 14-day purge. We had a 14-day purge for almost 2 years, and maintained however many guilds within 14 days. And then a GM really pushed and wanted to get it changed, and she really lobbied the other GMs. Took her a few months, and we finally agreed to change it to 30 days. So now we're at 30 days, and I still think 30 days is reasonable personally. But we did start off with a 14-day purge, and we had 2 guilds that were full within 14 days, and it was slamming busy, So, all right. What's the next thing on here other than mission statement? Is that the only thing that was on there?
Next thing is all procedure. No, there's nothing else on mission statement.
Okay. I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to take over. Do you have anything more you want to say on that?
No, you did a fantastic job.
And you've been with us. Has it been 3 years?
3 years.
I'm sorry.
2 years.
2 years. Okay. So I'm going to say let's take our 5-minute bio break right now before we go to the next thing. Does anybody have an objection to that? We're doing pretty good on time, so let's meet back at 5 past what? Or sorry, excuse me, 15 past whatever hour you have. And if anybody, I have a wireless headset, so if people want to ask questions or talk about anything we've talked about, I promise you won't hear me peeing or anything.
Oh,
Unless
darn.
that's what you're into.
Let's not.
It sounds like Loki's interested.
No.
Let's
Well, if
not
he is,
insinuate
I'm
it,
not
okay?
sorry to disappoint you.
Okay, so we're free to go for a bathroom break.
Yes.
Hey, bio.
Not many.
I gotta go.
Okay.
I don't got a pee bucket.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
What'd you do?
I think I accidentally changed something in my router that's about to make the internet reset.
So we gonna lose you?
I think I've came and gone. Can you
Meaning you're
hear?
back now?
Apparently.
Okay.
But my stream is still reconnecting.
What'd I miss? Anything good? Did Loki throw a chair on somebody?
No, he just did himself for a minute.
Did it turn into Jerry Springer up in here?
No, it's been very quiet.
So up next, we'll be talking about Solid Procedural. We're to be talking about some of the committees. We'll be focusing more not as long as it would hope, talk about some of the policies, stuff with the raid team, so on and so forth.
Everybody should have their Discord permissions set.
Dumb question. How do we get to that the member list now that I have access to that?
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later.
Okay,
But
cool.
if we're on break. If you click on mature content at the top and click server settings and then click members. And then you'll see display role where it says add everyone. That's where you can filter it down to role.
But officers have the permission to look at that.
Oh yeah, I just didn't know where that was. Now I see it. Okay, cool, awesome.
I'm a calendar nut, so I'm adding all my stuff to my calendar. I need a new color for the guild.
Do you use
Really
Google
nice.
Calendar?
Oh, I use Google Calendar and printed calendar. I have to
So
have both.
for Google Calendar, you can load in the mature content calendar, but you're probably talking about the individual thingies.
So Loki, when we go, I do that. I have that officer we demoted. What? I guess we'll go over the archive stuff still later, or do we? Is that pretty much?
I demoted him to senior officer. Did you demote him? I demoted him from senior officer to officer. Did you demote him further?
No, I think I saw you purge him too. I think I think he's gone.
Possible.
Are we talking about me?
Yes.
Not surprising. You like I said, you kicked me out today.
Okay, how do I add in the mature content to my
When you
Isn't
go to
it-
the top of the event, I think, isn't it?
So when you go to the TalkFi website, not the editable one, but the normal one, and next to where it says Pinboard, Agenda, and Monthly, you can hit subscribe.
All right, it is 1:15. I don't have a ready check, so I hope everybody is here. It's all procedural. This looks like a lot, but it actually isn't. I just kind of like threw these on here to remind myself of what to say. But when we talk about officers, we talk about the officer meeting here for a moment. We've got 2 hours. The first hour is general conversation. The first half hour of the second hour is realm breakout. And then the second half hour of the second hour are the committees. And what I mean by it's all procedural is it ideal that a GM be the head of a committee that does something within that? Is it preferred that a GM is a raid leader if they run the raid committee? Of course, that would be the ideal situation. It would make the most sense, but that doesn't mean you have to be. But what we need to do is have a place for the officers that would like to take on responsibilities within these set committees, a place to go for that last half hour of the officer meeting. And just because there is no RP committee lead or PvP committee lead or what have you, that doesn't mean that officers may not want to go and do things and talk about doing things in that regard. We're telling them that the committee exists, so somebody's got to oversee the committee. It's again most common and convenient if it's the GM, if a GM does something in that arena as well. But even if you're the person that's just sitting there and moderating a conversation for 30 minutes on that topic, that's okay too. So it's really important that we have committee leads, or at least somebody who's responsible for those people. If you're not on another committee, if you're not on another committee, and there's not, let's say there's no role play committee, if you're not on another, if you're not on the raid committee, the PvP committee, or the social committee, the recruiting committee, or the streaming committee, then you might have to be that person for that last half hour, and it may have to rotate each month, and maybe you go down into that room and nobody ever shows up. You know, usually we combine it with your realm anyway, so if nobody comes in to want to talk about being a role play officer, then you're done. You're done for the night. So, you know, preferably yes. Hopefully, the social committee lead is somebody who runs a social event each month and wants to be there, because we've had conflicts where people have wanted to be in two committees at one time and they couldn't be. They were PvP and raid committee, or social and raid committee, or whatever, and they have to choose. So we don't want to, you know, force people to have to choose. We want them to go where they want to go, but we don't always have people that do that. We have to take that into consideration. What is this spreadsheet that we put in here? I want to remind myself. Brings up the nuts and bolts. Okay, never mind. Raid team. So so at the end of the day, we're all owners. We're all partners. If we don't have a raid committee lead, and we have 3 raid teams, those raid leaders have got to go to somebody for the logistical part of what needs to happen. The calendar event addition and editing, adding to the raid document itself, which we don't even have in here to talk about. But certainly, if you ever want to see how it's done, somebody will walk you through it. The applications, the people that come
What's
in,
not in
keeping an
there?
eye on all that. The specifics that any of these committees do.
Oh yeah, no, that's in the compiled document thing.
Right. But if there's not somebody who's willing to say I'll be the point of contact, then you by default as their home realm GM are now their point of contact if there's not a committee lead. So if somebody comes to you and says I want to be an RP officer, and there's nobody to send them to as a committee lead, you know, then you have to help them get their stuff up on the calendar. And that's just kind of common sense. We can't not help people because there's not a designated person. We assume the responsibility of the designated person when there is none. Compile policies. I'm going to skip over that. Senior GMs. The compile policies goes into, maybe I shouldn't skip over that, into the charter, correct? Yes. So if we click on the hyperlink by compile policies, it'll go into the mature content compile documentation policies and procedures, TBN in the works. And we can thank Joe and Loki for working on this probably over, I would say, what, the last year?
Probably.
Probably.
Be a good estimate.
It's a very long-term work in progress. They are not exclusively the ones that can work on this. As he said, you can offer edits. If it's a major change, then obviously it would have to be something discussed and voted on, and then it would be changed to reflect. These are our general policies on how we handle members that are returning to the guild. Obviously, a member returning to the guild that had no issues in the past, there's no reason why they wouldn't be welcome. But those things, you know, things do happen. Officers step down and or members leave in a less than gracious way, whether we ban them or not. There's somebody that's coming back that their name got bounced around in a negative light. You know, so how do we handle that? This goes through that. I'm not going to go through it step by step, but these are the general guidelines of how we look at the situation. Of course, every individual is individual, and an independent individual decision needs to be made for every individual person. But these are the general guidelines in what we do. So take a look through these. That's very important. We have our ranks in here. If we ever start another guild, all guilds are supposed to have the same ranks. The bank setup is not in here. I don't believe because it's pretty loose. But where would we find bank
It's
setup
in there.
instruction? It is in here.
Yeah, it's under in-game rank structure.
Okay, I missed that one.
Well, that one just talks about the minimum that we allow for each rank to have.
Repairs.
But as far right, repairs and withdrawals from each tab.
Mhm.
In the officer hub is where we have like screenshots of examples of how to set up each tab on the bank, like
Right.
where the materials go.
And I think we all have seen the bank, played with the bank, know the gist of the bank. One tab's a deposit, and then we move it to where we want. And you guys pretty much have, you know, whatever creative license you want to do at the bank. Some GMs have had raid tabs where the raiders could have, that they would store stuff for raiders or the raid leaders. Some would have a store tab. A lot of us have store tabs. Some of us have 2 or 3 tabs that are private only, where we just stock up on stuff, and some have less. So it's a guideline. If if you have an idea that you feel like is going to be fruitful for your guild bank, I don't think anybody's going to stand in your way of it. So you guys can look through this at your leisure. A lot of this is going to depend on you going back and looking at some of the information and making sure that you're familiar with it.
Now, what not completely outlined in there, but one of the questions that comes up a lot, and all the links are in there in GM chat, are about the raid teams. The raid teams are like the problem child of the guild. They always come up and sticks its head out. We do have the roster and application, which is in guild links. But some of the things that aren't so much out there is there's a policy for the creation of raid teams and kind of the policy around it. Now the policy around it really only right now deals with if somebody has a complaint and how they rectify said complaint. But there's an outline on how people would apply to be a raid lead and the creation thereof. So I do ask that you go over and look at what the application process is, because it does involve you as a GM. Because the first person they're supposed to talk to regarding setting up or potentially applying for a raid team is the home GM. And then you share the information about the expectations, the requirements, stuff like that, which I've posted a more clarified version of that, and then you give them the application to be a raid lead. After that, everything is more or less left in the hand of the raid committee lead, which would fall to me, and then the set outlines on what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and what myself or my co-lead, if I should have one, will need to do. Now, the reason I wanted to take some time and mention that is because there may be reasons why a raid team isn't approved. It's happened. Overlapping times, overlapping progression. The person
Usually
that
almost always overlapping time, really.
Or the person not having enough experience.
Yeah.
But the one that always rears its head and people will get complaints about is that why Shadow hears about it a lot is because of overlapping times.
Okay.
Yeah, because normally no one complains when they're told, oh, you don't have enough people, oh, you don't have enough experience. People complain if there's overlapping times because people have different opinions on it. And basically what we've left it to in the past is, unless someone throws a huge fit and goes to their GM, that more or less what the raid committee is invested on approving teams or removing teams, but the GM council reserves the right to intercede for whatever reason.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we always, as a council, have a right to outvote a committee if, for some reason, we chose to. I mean, personally, if you start an hour or more after another raid team, chances are everybody that first raid team needs is in that even if it takes them a while to ramp up. So to me, it always felt like, don't at least wait an hour before the raid team, or 2 hours if you can. But sometimes people want to start raid teams to be in competition with particular people, but I digress. So
yes, if
there,
people are coming to you with complaints about a raid team, or whatever, I would ask that you send them to me, and I'll take care of it. Unless for some reason they have a complaint about me as a raid team lead, and then don't send them to me.
please bring them to me and join us. So I can tell you from personal experience, and I think Joe and Loki will back me up and say this. I have not liked everybody on the council, and not everybody on the council has liked me. And I
That's
haven't
because
liked,
you're scary.
and I have not liked everybody in the guild, and not everybody in the guild has liked me.
No, I'm just kidding.
What I can do is, even though I may not like somebody, I can still recognize the what they're bringing to the table. They're still volunteering their time. They're still helping the guild. They're still a positive influence in plenty of people's lives. We just have a different way of seeing life, and we're not going to come together. We're respectful with one another. We treat each other with respect, and we interact with each other in the ways that we just have to interact with one another. So the first thing I want to talk about is GM chat, since some of you guys, newer guys, are coming in. Direct quotes, screenshots, or direct information about what is said in GM chat is absolutely forbidden. If it's ever proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that you copy pasted something out of our GM chat, it would probably lead to a vote to have you demoted, I would hope. General conversation like the council is considering this, and there are some GMs that feel this way, and there are some GMs that feel that way. That's okay, and that's appropriate. But where you're representing the council and presenting all of the ideas of the different sides, but to say Shadow thinks this and Loki thinks that and Barb thinks this and Aldoxan thinks this, that is not appropriate, and I hope we all, to anyone outside of our group. So I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure we all have somebody within this group that we're friends with, that we're confidants with, and that we can air whatever grievances we may have about the guild, about our officers, about our members, about each other, a safe place to go and have that conversation. And it's going to happen, because there's going to be individual relationships made, and all the complexities of those things. But at the end of the day, we have to tolerate each other to a certain point. Hopefully we all want to do that. I do. I love you all. I don't have any problems with anybody in this group personally, but it's going to happen. It does happen. But hopefully through the structure that we have, the existing structure we have, and the agreements that we've made in the past and of late, we can, we can move forward, and we can move forward within certain guidelines, so that it doesn't create issues with one another. But one of the issues that comes up is member disputes. All right, there's an issue with a member, and it's not my member. Technically, it's not my home realm member, or it is my home realm member. I can't be logged, as much as I'm logged into Discord and into my guild. I can't be here 24 hours a day. So I have to trust I have to trust that we all have that core set of values and foundation, that you're going to represent me in your absence, and I'm going to represent you in yours, right? So we have to put a certain amount of trust and bias toward one another by our simple membership of the group. And we have to agree to work with each other. And we have to agree to bring the parties together to resolve their issues if we can. That has to be the first thing that we all work very diligently to do. If we know two of us, two members, whatever, have issues with each other, people are coming to us and say, I don't like this person, I have a problem with this person, I have, whatever. Be the moderator, be the person that brings them together, and it stops. It ends right there. It puts it, it's a barrier from the conversation that goes on behind the scenes, and it builds up and people get upset. And it's usually, if you can get them face to face, something in most situations where people can find consensus and usually walk away with a handshake or a hug. But there's going to be situations that are beyond interpersonal issues, but just straight up inappropriate, right? Some troll gets into our Discord server, starts screaming the N word or something. We got to ban them. We got to get rid of them. We have to take care of our Discord server for our members and keep that out of here if we can, because our members don't want to hear that. They didn't join for that, I assume. So you got to ban them. You can right click and ban somebody in Discord like that. Make a note of it somewhere, put it in GM chat, put it on that document if you can. A lot of times when you ban somebody for a performance thing, or not a performance thing, business, Michael, a behavioral issue, it's so fast because it's, you're trying to stop that behavior. We forget to look like, okay, what home realm was there? Oh shit. And I've done that a million times. Like, damn it, I didn't even know what home realm that guy was from. And now I don't know, who to talk to. Try to make a note of the home realm and the name in Discord before you ban them, because that might get rid of that information for you later, and we might have to search to try to find it. If it's a text-based issue, when you go to ban somebody in Discord, you're going to have a time period that you can go back and remove their text from the entire server. So if they're in there saying things in Discord and hashtag guild chat they shouldn't be, and you ban them and say delete everything for the last 7 days, poof, it's all gone, and we can get rid of that racist rant or whatever it might be. So there's times where a straight up ban, somebody is freaking out, screaming, yelling, cursing. Somebody left their, somebody left their mic on. You put it down there, but just somebody's way out of control. A ban has got to happen. But we all know timeout is there. Timeout is the, I don't want to say the next step to ban. It's the thing to stop a ban, but it's a control measure. It's saying your behavior at this moment is not where it needs to be. I can't get a hold of you. I can't talk to you. You're a lot of times when people are trying to make a big show and you try to take them to a private conversation, they get louder and prouder, whether text or voice, because they want the mob mentality. They want to get the people around them riled up for whatever reason, and you got to stop them. And that's where timeout comes into play. But if you're putting them in timeout, you're passing them on to their GM. Well, technically the officer is, and you're passing them off to their GM, and the assumption is that's going to slow them down for the GM to give the GM time, because we all work, we all have family, we got to deal with this stuff. Maybe we don't log into Discord every day. I mean, I would assume there's days we're not in Discord, so things can go for 2 or 3 days. It's a slowdown and a control measure to get that person out of control, in control, so that the GM can get involved, figure out what's going on, or at least the GMs can. And I mean, if you want to handle one of my members in my absence and you think you can resolve it without me, I say go for it. I'm not going to stand in your way of that, because if you were there and you know what's going on, you're better equipped to handle it than I am. But it gives me time to get to that member, find out what's going on, assess the situation, gives them time to cool down, and cooler heads prevail, hopefully. But if a GM bans a member, if a GM times out a member, just like if an officer does, the home realm GM has complete autonomy to do whatever they want. You deal with it, you make the decision, have a great day. But if a GM bans a member, the two GMs, if it's not obviously the home realm GM that does the banning, the other GM has to consult with the home realm GM, obviously explain why they banned that person, and the home realm GM should at least give the courtesy of saying, I've talked to this person, do you mind if I remove the ban? 90% of the time, they're going to say, no, that's fine. Remove the ban. You're good, whatever. If they say absolutely not, positively not, I do not want that person back in this Discord server because their behavior was horrible, then you have to go back to that member and explain to that member that they have to come before the council at the monthly council meeting to speak to them and have the ban lifted permanently. I can tell you in 5 years or 4 years that we've done it that way, nobody's come before the council. And that's just a statistical fact.
And anyone who said they wanted to come before the council doesn't.
Didn't show up, put on, yeah. So, we have the procedure there. People usually just tell us to F off and leave before they get there. So, but it's only happened, I think, like twice that I can think of.
Or they make a second account and change your IP address back.
And the last thing I want to touch on so we can move forward is what I call what I put down here is gossip versus actionable intel. We have to make sure that we understand there's a very fine line between somebody gossiping to us and giving us their opinion because they like us, we're friends, or what the case may be, and somebody who is frustrated and needs you to intervene for them in a situation between interpersonal issue or whatever the case may be between them and someone else. I have gotten into the habit of asking that person, do you want me to get involved on your behalf, or are you just venting to me? If they say, no, I don't want to get involved, that's where it ends. I don't move it forward. I just look at it as somebody venting to me, because what we don't want to get into, what happens all the time, past, present, and future, is, damn it, Shadow, a bunch of people are mad right now about such and such. Well, what's a bunch of people? Well, a whole lot of people have been coming to me and telling me they're mad about something. Well, what's a whole lot of people? 3. Okay, so 3 people are upset about this. Now, 3 does represent a greater number, certainly, if you polled the entire guild. But, okay, 3 people, all right, and who are those people? Well, I can't mention their names. They just told me privately. That's where the conversation's got to stop. If people are not willing to engage in the conversation and hide behind somebody else doing that for them, we can't get stuck on that all the time. If people have a real concern and they want to be a part of the solution, they have to be willing to come forward and willing to talk to people and willing to be honest and about their feelings. Otherwise, a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and we have a form for that, and they can fill out that form and give us their opinions if they want to, confidently or not. But we have to be careful about, let me just put it this way. If you're here long enough, someone will complain about you and someone will complain about me. I'm not going to come to you every time somebody complains to me about you. I'm going to come to you if somebody complains to me about you, and A, I either agree with that complaint, or B, that person is willing to come to you with me and have a conversation about it. Because if it's not my problem, I have no dog in the fight. Like, why am I gonna go defend your shit? I'll help you, defend this. If you need a moderator because you're not comfortable having this conversation for whatever reason, independent of guild's involvement, and a lot of times it should be independent of guild's involvement because it has nothing to do with us. But so people have to be forthcoming. We got to keep it honest. We got to keep it somewhat professional in the sense that we don't talk bad. I will never talk bad about anybody in this room behind their back. I will never say anything bad about you. If I have nothing to say, I won't say anything at all. But I will not say anything bad about you to anybody outside of this room. That's my promise, and I hope that that's the promise that everybody in this room will make tonight as they join us. I'll say good things now. I promise. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns about what we've talked about up to this point? We've got about 19 minutes left, and we're doing really good. And then if we have some time in the end, we can just do general Q&As.
Yay, Discord talks.
Discord talk.
Want me to go through this?
Yes, please go for it. My mouth is dry.
So, all love and hate Discord. Now that you're GM, there's some additional things you get to do. Shadow's already mentioned the fact that you can ban them. You can also deafen people. deafen, just basically make sure they can't hear anything that is going on. There's multiple reasons why you may want to do that. In case you're in the process of muting them or moving them to timeout or so on and so forth, you may want to deafen them so they can't just get riled up by being in the channel and not being able to talk or anything like that. So that is an option. I've rarely used it. If you in Discord go to the top and hit where it says mature content and it gets a drop down, we're going to want to go to the server settings section. Once you're there, you're going to see some additional things that you did not have before, or you may not have noticed before. One of the things you now have is what's called the audit log. This will go through. Hold on. Streamer mode not letting me look.
Everything that happens.
Yeah.
Streamer mode's not going to let you look, but at the top right there's a filter.
Yeah, I took care of it. It's going to list all things that have happened. You kick people, update roles, anything like that. So, if you wanted to go through and see all of the people that have got kicked within a certain period of time, on the upper right hand corner, there's filtered by action. When you hit that drop down, you're going to see a bunch of different options: create channel, channel permissions, kick, prune, ban, so on and so forth. So if you click kick member, you're going to see everyone who has been kicked. So say you're trying to figure out what if someone was actually kicked from Discord or if they left and what the reason would be that they were kicked. You can go here. So if you look at the top line where it says a Dachshund kicked PO99, if you click on that, you're going to see the reason is purged. So he started doing his Discord purge, which we'll talk about a tad bit later, but not a whole bunch. You'll see like Shadows kick someone because they left the guild. I've kicked people because they were at 30 days. So when you do kick people, please try to put a reason in, even if you're just copying and pasting it from previous ones. So like when I kick on Storm Rage, I do 30 days -SR because I was doing stuff for Proudmoore. So there's that. But one of the things that we've been looking at recently is update member. So if you go back to filter by action and go to update member, you're going to see every time someone has changed someone's nickname or something else that is not updating their role. So a lot of it has to do with their nickname. So if you're trying to figure out who changed someone's nickname, an example, say somebody didn't set someone's nickname up right, and you're trying to figure out who it was so you can DM them and like have a conversation like I did with someone today because they included numbers in somebody's name. I seen the person down in landing pad, shot the officer a quick message, let them know. But one of the ways you can do that, if you've seen it later, if you see that the person's name does have numbers in it, you can go see who it is and then message them. If for some reason that there's the update member roles section as well, so say you wanted to find out who brought somebody through the landing pad, one good way to be able to do that is by going through finding the person's Discord name and seeing who added the roles. Now, unfortunately, it's not always going to be able to show you. May not always be straightforward to figure out what somebody's Discord name is. But now if you go to on the left hand side where it says user management and you go to members, you're going to have a list of all the people in the server, and if you have the person's Discord name that it was saying in the thing before, you can put it into the search box right here and it will filter it down. Now before we get done with the audit logs, I just wanted to point out along the top next to where it says filter by action, there is filter by user. So say you wanted to know everything that the Shadow or I or whoever's done because you're trying to figure out one thing or another, whatever reason you want to narrow something down, you can do that by each individual user, which is helpful at times as well. So if we go back to the members area, there's a drop down section that says display role at the top. So when you do your Discord reconciliation, or you're trying to find somebody, or when you're doing your update on census and you're trying to figure out your Discord number, hit the display role and do the drop down. And for example, if you clicked on Stormage member, it's going to show you everyone with their Stormage member tag. So you would see I have 191 members. I can go through, find people quickly, or I can search them when I'm doing my purge. But that's one thing you're able to do. Now, quickly, I wanted to show you the ban section. So say somebody's messaging you because they were banned, or you're trying to figure out if someone is banned and why. You can go to the ban section and you can search the bans. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see what their nickname was on the server at the time they were banned. You can only really see their Discord name. So if somebody is messaging you, just make sure you get their Discord name from their profile.
And that appears in a DM if they DM you.
Exactly, along the top. So you can use that and search it down. Like we may have said before, when you're banning someone, please put a reason in why you're banning them. That way, if the person is going to someone other than yourself, they can go and see the ban reason. Now, if you're trying to figure out why somebody was banned, who banned them, I should say, that's when you go to audit log and do filter by action and go to banned, and that way you have a much smaller list that you would go through, because we don't really ban people that often. Now, unfortunately, right near it only goes back to the beginning of the year, but a lot of times it will go back farther for a lot of other things. And if you just click on it, they'll also have the reason why they're banned. Now, if the ban goes back so far that you're not able to find them, then you can just put something in GM chat that says, does anyone remember why this person was banned, or anything like that.
And there may be, just a caveat to all of the ban situation, there may be a situation where somebody gets banned, you need to speak to them, you're not mutual friends, so you're probably contacting people and having, things are going on. Unban them, let them come into the server, grab them down into a 2v2 or 3v3 room, and have your conversation and do what you got to do and make your decision, or whatever the case may be. But you can always reapply the ban if for some reason you have to. But there may be, if you're friends with them through Discord, you can just message them through Discord.
Yeah.
But if you're not, which a lot of times you're not going to be, because it may be somebody you don't even know, you're going to have to remove the ban and then have them come in and then speak to them.
One of the other things you could do is when you find their Discord name, you could also go and add them as a friend, and then message them, and then do a end Discord friend call. So that's one way of doing it, in case you don't want to go around and have like double bans and stuff like that, but mileage may vary depending on your experience and usage of Discord.
Right. And just as a recommendation, I will usually lift the ban, have them come in, and then have another GM come in and speak with them with me. And there's several GMs that I'm comfortable saying, hey, that are usually around, so will you come in and talk to this person with me? Because it does, believe me, there's always two sides to every story. We know that. It really does help if you have at least someone there to be a witness to the conversation, in case somebody just goes completely off script and starts their own narrative. CYA kind of thing.
Exactly. So we're here as a team. If you need somebody to bounce questions off of, or if you need to have a conversation because you want to get advice on something, we're all here for you. You can put it in GM chat, get feedback, or you can do voice conversations, which is easier to do because you actually get to hear inflections and stuff like that. So you're actually able to see possibly somebody's being sarcastic, and you don't know they're being sarcastic because it's text, as an example. That happens to me a lot. I'm sarcastic, and no one knows I'm being sarcastic. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. With being a GM, you have a whole bunch of other additional channels. I know we talked about this briefly earlier.
I have a question before we step away from this.
Okay.
on the audit log. Under the filter by action, I noticed there's kicked, banned, and prune. What's the difference?
So kick is when somebody actually physically removes them. Ban for pruning. What can be done, which I know Shadow occasionally does it, is there's a prune function in the member section, and you can pick either more than 1 day, more than 7 days, or more than 30 days. And it's basically if someone has been inactive and doesn't have a tag. So say somebody came in, joined landing pad, and then left and hasn't been active on the server, it allows us to prune them. And remove them from the actual server. So like right now I went prune at 30 days, and it kicked them off the server because they were inactive for 30 days.
Okay, so kicked and banned sound the same.
No, kick is just removing your membership to the server. It just strips you of all your permissions and boots you right off the server, but you can immediately come back. Okay, that's a kick. A ban is you're kicked off the server and you can't come back. If you try to, it'll say, nope, sorry, this link doesn't work.
Okay.
And then a prune is somebody who has never got a role ever, sitting in limbo for at least a day or more. So it's a kick, technically, but it's a prune because you never got a role.
Okay.
That's
So
the initiate tag, right? Correct.
They get the
initiate. The initiate tag. You won't prune somebody with initiate tag. They at least have a role. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Someone needs to go through and kick them, which I think Shadow's been doing. But occasionally if someone has the initiate tag or the VIP tag, they do get occasionally purged. Now that you're a GM, you have a whole bunch of additional channels. I think Shadow mentioned it before, but you can just mute the channels and then hit hide muted channels. Speaking of channels, now that you're a GM, even though you could do this as an officer, a lot of people, you're able to make channels for people. The easiest way to do this is to right-click one of the channels that have the relevant information. So say you're making it for a special event. I normally clone any of the please be ready to participate channels and move it up, and then either increase or decrease the member limit. So if you go look at, like, say the second expedition channel, you're going to see information on if you press the little cogwheel at the end or do right click and edit channel. You're going to see information under channel name, bitrate, user limit. You can do the user limit down to unlimited or up to 99, but I would not touch the bitrate for that. Now, for the reason I suggest cloning channels instead of making a brand new one, because if you click on the permission section, you're going to see all of the relevant ranks. And making it new, you would have to go through and add specific permissions unless you're making it available for everyone.
There's a lot of ranks within the permissions that you have to go in, and as a shortcut, generally when I create a room, what I say to somebody is, do you need push to talk or do you want people to be able to use voice activity? If they say I want them to have to use push to talk, I clone a solo chat room, and if they say push to talk, and if they say I want a voice activity room, I clone solo chat voice activity, change the name, adjust the number of people, and put it where it needs to go. It's really that simple. If they're going to allow pugs into the group and it not just guild people, then you want to clone the rooms that are below the landing pad, and just like kind of look at the numbers, because most of those are all which ones? Random dungeons, rated, anything that's battleground related is all voice activity. They're all voice activity. So you just clone the one you want, adjust the number, and you've got it.
So I'm confused. Like, I'm right clicking these, I'm only seeing 2 options. So how do you clone?
Right click on it, you'll see right click on the channel name, the voice channel name.
So if I right click on solo chat,
Yeah.
I only have two options: instant invite and delete channel.
All right, hold on. Let me check your. Where are you, Aldaxon? There you are. Guildmaster recruiting league. Do guildmasters have the ability to clone channels? Yeah, they do.
I do.
Let me
Maybe restart my
try now.
Discord.
Aldaxon. I gave you the senior officer rank, but I don't think that really should make a difference.
No, it doesn't. And when I had the senior officer, I had that. I remember I had that. Now
Barb,
I don't.
Heather, not one of our newer Will, whoever one of you
Yeah, I
guys.
can do it.
You can do it. Okay, you may
I
need to
can,
reboot
too.
that. You may need to reboot Discord then. Discord can be a little laggy.
Well, let's try. If you have a problem with the Eldoxin after we're done with the training, just let me know. I am not going to go into anything else with Discord because we don't really have. We only have a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
But one of the things that if a channel is bringing in pugs, one of the easiest ways to make sure they're not going to a landing pad or right in their channel sometimes is doing instant invites. That's something that Joe, I, or Shadow can help you with later on, because there's like specific things you would need to do to be able to do instant invites, but you are not able to move anyone to or from any channel as a GM, and officers can do it below the landing pad. So it's not as much of an issue now that Joe started the auto initiation of the VIP guest tag. And that's really pretty much it with Discord. Shadow Joe.
Did everybody get at least have gotten the video link for the Discord roster reconciliation, and or hopefully have watched it and have a general comfort understanding of what I did there? Any questions about that?
I haven't. It was very helpful. I used
I know
it earlier.
you watched the first time I did it when I actually sat down and did it, and I took 3 hours to do it, and halfway through it I hit the damn mute button by mistake. I was like, fuck. All right. If you have any questions about it, it really, ask for my help. I'll help you do it. I've helped many GMs go through and do their Discord versus in-game roster reconciliation. The first time I've helped, 2 GMs, a GM and a co do it, so I don't mind helping you. I'm not going to go through line 6 where we say we need each other, but basically, to sum that up, and I said it earlier, we as a group we have power. We have we all put our effort into it. People show up, guild events, that type of thing. So help each other out. Just because you're not the lead of something, if you see something needs to be done, an error is made, there's no chain of command above you. You're here. You're at the top. Enjoy it. And lastly, if a guild is stolen or a GM wishes to step down, if at any point, we would prefer that if you want to step down, that you wait to the council meeting and do that where everybody can kind of be a part of that at one time. If that's not what you want to do, which honestly, in most cases, not what most people want to do, please turn your guild over to your co-GM if they plan on staying, and you have one. If not, contact a member of the senior, I say senior, but me or Loki or any of the other GMs,
Joe.
And Joe, contact any of us, and even if it's for a day, we'll get it out of your hands if you feel like the burden has got that heavy. We all understand. We've all been there. A lot of us have stepped down, stepped up, rotated in and out of officership and GMship over the years. So sometimes we just need a break and to change our perspective. We get caught up, and that's okay. Just like with officers, demotions aren't punishments, and neither is stepping down. It's just acknowledgement that something has changed. If a guild is stolen, that's when I said that's probably the only real emergency that happens in this guild, is if a guild is stolen. Of course, our members are going to immediately start getting on us. Where do I put my character? Do I stay in this guild? Do I immediately quit? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Just get the new guild created, give people a home, get the other GMs involved. We'll support you. We'll help you. And usually within the first, 2-3 days is the most important time to make sure there's people around that know what's going on and so forth. But I'm not going to go too much into that. Joe and Loki and I, we have many years of FEMA education and training in this guild, so we always kind of laugh because we always come together in emergency really well. But hopefully, those days are over. But if it's something stolen, if you can, be the person to get in there and get the guild started if you can. If you can't get the guild name because it hasn't been changed yet, get a guild started. You can always pass it to me. I'll pay for the name change, pass it back to you if that's an issue once the name is available. But getting people an immediate place to hang their hat's important to them. So it's a little after 11. I would like to say one thing. I've stopped broadcasting Loki, and I was wondering if you could too.